Hello, and welcome to the Mindful Momentum podcast. So glad you're here. And my name's Robin Todd, the host of the podcast. And today, super excited. I feel like I always say that, but I am always excited about our guest. And this is Shelley Kemp. Shelley and I have known each other for a few years now. We're both passionate about some of the same things. And she actually was in town to speak at our annual retreat last night. And so I looped her into coming in today so that we could gain, absorb some of her wisdom and insight and a little bit of her story of how she got here. And so just a little bit about Shelley. Her bio is very long and distinguished, but some of the most recent things, she's been recognized in 2024 as one of Memphis's top 15 coaches by Influence Digest. Impressive. She's from Memphis, Tennessee, if you didn't figure that out. She is currently HR business partner in business operations for the Memphis Grizzlies, so she's passionate about basketball.
Yeah, go Grizzlies.
Yeah. Let's see. She's a motivational speaker, mindfulness trainer, art practitioner, which I didn't know.
I know, that's a new thing.
I know.
It's a new thing.
I'd love to learn more about that. She was also named HR Professional of Excellence and Innovative HR Team in 2023 by the Tennessee Society for Human Resource Managers. She speaks at conferences. She's wrapping up her doctorate degree. She's not busy at all.
No. Lots of free time.
Yeah, and also has developed this beautiful model for coaching in just really personal and professional growth for people.
Yeah.
So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. I'm excited to learn more myself and to share that with our folks listening. And let's see, your mission is to bring people together through education, creating connections, and maximizing human potential through mindful communications, authentic leadership, and helping others manage change. Woo! Okay. Yeah. Love it. So let's just start out a little bit. Tell our audience and
Sure.
me a little bit about you and how you kind of landed in HR and the evolution a little bit in how you became passionate about leadership development, particularly women in leadership, since you are very involved in the Women in Leadership program at
the University of Memphis.
There we go.
Yeah, Fogelman College of Business.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm an only child, and so I've always been a leader. And so it was just very, very natural. When I was in my 20s, my first career was in sales, and I was evidently very good at that, and so I rose to a position of leadership and held that for many years. When I decided to go back to school and actually get a degree, all of my professors, they just kind of focused in on, hey, you're a people person, you need to go into HR, and I trusted them, and so I went into HR, and that's really how I landed in human resources. My first gig in HR was at a bank, and that's where I cut my teeth, so to speak, in human resources. After the bank, I went back into higher education, and again, HR, but I loved working at a college and being around all the learning and all the people and all the students. I feel like it kept me young, and I did that for 8 or 9 years, and then worked for a transportation company for 5 years, National Express Corporation. They were so good to me, and they really poured into me and allowed me to lead others. And so I owe them a big bowl of gratitude, because they really allowed me to kind of create my own niche when it came to leading others. And then after National Express, it was the Memphis Grizzlies, and I've been here now for about 6 years. And people, I guess, just kind of naturally gravitate towards others who are decisive. And I tend to be a person who can make decisions very quickly, and I usually have an opinion about something. And if you don't have an opinion, I'll give you one of mine. And I think leaders are looked to be decisive and to have a compass, so to speak. And so hopefully I give that to other people because I really want people to be successful. And So I think God has just allowed me to have a few tools and resources that kind of make people gravitate towards me, and so that's kind of how I fell into leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think your leadership style is? What would you say?
It's evolved over the years.
Good leaders are always evolving.
It's evolved
right?
over the years. I remember there was a season where I was that participatory leader where I wanted everyone to participate in the decision, and it seems really nice when you can get everybody on board and when you can get everybody's feedback, but then you have the paradigm of no decision being made because no one can agree on really the right path. So participatory leadership didn't really work for me long term. And I think if I had to choose a leadership style now, it's not autocratic. I didn't.
Well, and I don't even know all the leadership styles, but just kind of your vibe.
Yeah. I think my leadership style is probably one in which I want everyone to figure out their leadership niche, because everyone can be a leader in something.
Love that.
Even, leaders have to follow as well. And so there's a time and a place in a group dynamic where you might have a leader of a particular project, but then on the next project, that leader is going to shift and become more of a support person so that somebody else can lead. And so I think we're always changing our roles and being placed where we're needed. And so my role is hopefully to help people leverage their strengths so that when it comes time for them to lead others or lead a project or lead an initiative, they feel confident and they can step in.
It sounds like the two words that kind of come up for me is being adaptable.
Absolutely.
And then it sounds like you're empowering them with
I hope so.
the confidence to step up and to even sometimes see strengths. Don't you think sometimes people don't even see their own strengths?
Absolutely.
And help them build that awareness of that?
Well, I think we all have that imposter syndrome pop up every once in a while. I know I'm included.
Fake it till you make it sometimes.
I know. And it is a real thing. And so I have to tell others, I have to tell myself that while you may think that you're not built for this particular project or this particular initiative, you're in this place for a very specific purpose. And so you're either going to lean into it, or you're going to struggle by pulling away from it because you're here right now.
Yeah.
And so I really want to help people just maximize their strengths so they can become the best version of themselves.
What do you think holds people back?
Fear. Fear totally holds people back. And it could be fear of, what happens next, because everybody wants to plan the next.
Yes.
If I don't succeed, what happens next? I don't have anything to fall into. Or fear of, if I succeed, then what happens next? Because change is scary. And I think people fear change, and if they can't control it, and we can't control things all the time.
Nope. Lots of things we can't control.
It's an illusion.
It's
an illusion when we think we can control things. And so I think people are just afraid of different things, disappointing themselves, disappointing other people, wasting their time, wasting their money, wasting their energy. And so it's a real thing.
Yeah. Well, and that brings us to, what you're describing is, of course, mindfulness.
Yes.
Of really being present and building that awareness of our own experience and response to things, that natural autopilot response of not stretching myself may hold me back from really, attaining my full potential.
True.
Or finding that joy, that experience that even though feels a little scary to try, is going to hold me back. And of course, that's all of our thoughts living in the future and creating all those crazy stories that we believe. Of course, it's also connected to ruminating in the past because, we love to go back there and think about all the things that don't qualify us to maybe step into those roles. So tell us a little bit about your mindfulness journey.
Ooh.
And how you got here with incorporating mindfulness into your life, into kind of your passion moving forward.
Sure. Well, I'm still learning so much about mindfulness.
Aren't we all?
Aren't we all? I think the more that I talk about it, the more that I practice it, the stronger I become, but I still have so much to learn. And my mindfulness journey started with my good friend, Robin. Not this Robin, but
Robin Wilson.
That's right.
She's
Dr.
part
Robin
of our
Wilson.
tribe.
And she DM'd me and she said, "Hey, I think you'd be a great mindfulness trainer and you should look into this." And so she sent me the link and I looked into it and I'm like, why in the world would she think that I'm good at this? And so we had just a few texts back and forth, and I trust her and I trust her judgment. And that's really what it came down to. So I, took a leap of faith and said, okay, I'll get this certification and I'll figure out what this is.
So before you went through our certification,
Yeah.
you really had no experience in mindfulness?
No.
Okay, I didn't realize that.
I did not.
Wow.
I had no idea. I was literally just trusting her.
Okay.
And I was thinking that God was using her,
Which he was.
I believe so, to put me in a place where I needed to be. Not just for work or for impacting other people, but really for me, because I tend to lead a very busy life. I like all the things. I like doing the things. I like being in the places and seeing the people, and that tends to be stressful. Good stress, but it can also be bad stress. And so I think my mindfulness journey started with me going out on faith, that Robin put me in a place where I needed to be. And then I just trusted that every single week whenever we met, okay, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to practice, and I'm going to take all of this in, and I'm going to figure out how I can apply it to myself. And then once I finished the mindfulness certification, then I thought, okay, I really want to tell all my friends about this, and I need to tell my husband about this. And did anybody else know about this secret of mindfulness? And so I really just tried to embrace that. And then over the years, because it's been just a couple of years, but over a few years, I've been able to apply all the principles that you've taught us, and the micro moments that we practice. I've been able to put those into practice whenever situations come up in life, and life is lifing. Yes. And so the more I do it, the more I practice it, the better I understand it. It's still very much a mystery to me, but I trust that I'm here to learn about mindfulness and to teach others about mindfulness, at least what I know, so that we can all, have a little bit more peace and approach life differently than people have approached life in the past.
Well, and if it's always such a joy as I work with people and watch them evolve and change over the course of the 6 months, and then of course beyond too, as they're really implementing it into their life. Excuse me, and really letting it become who they truly are. And I feel like it's such an honor for me to have watched you grown, because I remember that first year, there was, I can't remember your word, but it was like, it was a little bit of a struggle of figuring out, like, where am I going? What am I doing? Which we've all been in those places. And then watch how your own mindful practices helped you open up perhaps to what we would call, the Holy Spirit or divine, just being able to listen to see where God wants you, and then watching you kind of figure that out, and all that come together has been just so beautiful.
It's really interesting because I go back to all of the fundamentals that you've taught us, starting with the just this exercise. And whenever I speak to groups, whenever I went to Microsoft and talked to them about mindfulness, I taught them the Just This exercise. It was a group of 500 people doing the Just This exercise in a conference center. And I thought, wow, this is really life-changing for somebody. And I've had so many people contact me after that and say, I know you thought, you were just dimming the lights and we were taking a moment to, refresh, but the Just This exercise changed my life.
I hear that all the time.
And it's so simple.
It's so simple and yet so powerful. I hear that all the time. And I love that you taught that, because anytime I have just one opportunity to talk with a group, it's always that one.
Yes.
And, sometimes people come back and like, 5 years later, I am still doing Just This. It's so helpful. And of course, then I'm like, great, it serves as my inspiration. But I'm always in like, we do have 8 more.
I know.
So if you ever want to learn more, like we have 8 more rock star practices. But that's okay. It's a great place to start. And I'm grateful that you're sharing that and people were responding and feeling good.
Yep.
So wonderful. Well, let's talk a little bit about your passion for leadership.
Sure.
And kind of the women in leadership and kind of where your desire is to invest, particularly in women, but also in leadership and the value and importance of that within organizations.
Sure. So I serve as a business advisor on Fogelman College of Business at the University of Memphis. Their Women in Leadership conference every single year. And they have a student track and they have a professional track. And so Dr. Kathy Tuberville, who runs the Women in Leadership program at Fogelman, she invited me in. And because I think she knows my heart for younger women, she knows my heart for interns and early career professionals. And I really want to help people develop the skills that I've learned over the past 30 years quicker. Because, wow, I could have been something very cool if I knew all of these tools 30 years ago or 20 years ago. And so I really want to impart, I guess, some of those lessons that I've learned along the way so that young women can step into their roles and so they can step into their leadership niche quicker than I was able to.
And if I remember right, you kind of shared at one point that there's this gap, when students, they get their degree and then there's the real world. And so talk a little bit more about that.
Oh, you picked that up. That's good. So that's part of my doctoral research.
Oh, that's right. Yes, tell us more about that.
So that is part of my doctoral research, and research has shown that there is a gap between graduation and getting your first career job in sports. So, I work for the NBA, and so I like to look at, there's a gap between graduation and going into your first real job in sports. How big is the gap? Well, research is kind of all over the place, and they've only been studying this for the last 5 or 6 years. So on the low end, it's 3 or 4 months. On the high end, it's 15 months. So about average 8 to 9 months to find your first real job out of college. That's kind of scary because you're investing all of this money, going to school, taking the classes, doing the things, doing the internships, and for you to not get a job after school is really, really scary. And for sports, there are so many nuances in sports that one has to consider before actually going into sports. And I think that impacts people's ability to go directly into a full-time job because they don't understand the commitment that you have to have in order to go into entertainment and sports.
So tell us some of those nuances. I'm curious.
I know.
Because I don't really know anything about that world.
There's some long hours. So I interviewed one of our hiring managers a few weeks ago, and he said, look, the pay is the pay. The journey is the journey, but the reward is the reward, and that is sports. If you can deal with kind of a lower pay when you first get in, the rewards are going to be exponential. So not everybody is prepared to make $15 an hour when they get out of college or $45,000 a year. They're just not prepared for that reality, and that is the reality when you're talking about getting into the sports industry when you first get out of school.
So I'm guessing you find people who are passionate about sports,
Yes.
right? Because that drives them to compromise. Yes. It's like, I'm so passionate, I'll do whatever.
Yes.
So
yeah. Research has taught that has everything to do with your athletic identity. It doesn't mean that you necessarily have to have been an athlete in order to move into sports and be passionate about it, but it does mean that you have to have some sort of connection. Kind of like the connection that I was talking about yesterday, where I always wanted to be a basketball player, but I could never be a basketball player because no one would pick me for their team. I still always loved basketball. And then when my son came around, I thought, you're going to play basketball. And so I still had, the passion for basketball, even though I was a band geek. And then he did play, and I was able to, just kind of enjoy the game. The game gives people so much joy, memories, a sense of teamwork. It teaches people how to relate with other people, how to deal with conflict. And we don't give sports enough, I guess, kudos for that. And so I guess that's another reason why I just love the game of basketball so much. Yeah. How did we get on basketball?
I don't know. Well, we got into the nuances of sport, of going into that industry.
Yes.
So you're really looking for people who are passionate.
Really. It does help. Because when you're not passionate, it's difficult to get past the hard times. Yeah. Let's say you're a salesperson and you're making $15 an hour, and it's on off season, so you're not making any commission. You have to find something innate to keep you going, to keep you motivated. And if you have that athletic identity, it really, really does help.
When honestly, when you think about it, I think that most people have to have that inspiration in any job they stick with.
I think so too.
Because at the end of the day, money's money. Money's only money.
Money is only money. That's right.
In the beginning, it feels like, yes, it's so rewarding to be earning what you maybe think you're valued at, or you can buy those things that you think are going to bring you that happiness, and they do temporarily, right? And it's great to aspire to that, and money is motivating, but long term there has to be more.
Well, what's interesting is we live in, the generation now is the now generation. They're used to picking up the phone, ordering their food, and they get it 15 minutes later. Whereas in your generation and my generation, we didn't have the phone to go to order our food. I mean, we could pick up the telephone and order the food, but we had to go get the food, And so we live in a very instantaneous society where they want things now. And so what happens as that translates into the workplace is, let's say you have a Generation Z or a millennial go into the workplace, and they start out at a coordinator position, very early career position. They want their promotion now. They want their money now. So they're in their 20s, and they're moving up the ladder very, very quickly because they want everything now. They're going to be burned out by the time they get to 35 because they're going to have so many responsibilities. They're going to have people underneath them. They're going to have decisions that they have to make, and so many responsibilities. And at 35, you still don't have the mindfulness, the critical thought skills.
Maturity.
The maturity, yes. The experience, to really, maintain that go, get attitude. And so people just need to slow down.
Yeah.
People need to slow down. They need to be a lot more mindful about the information that's coming in and not judge it so quickly. And if they could just do some of the micro, practices that we teach in that 8-9 week class of the certification classes that you taught us, it would go such a long way, and people would have such a more in my opinion, a gratifying life.
Yeah.
Instead of just trying to accumulate and accumulate, they could really enjoy things along the way.
Yeah. Well, Shelley, let's talk a little bit about how mindfulness impacts leadership development and the importance of it as you see it, and then also a little bit about your kind of pivot principles and kind of what you've developed as a coach to those aspiring to grow and learn and perhaps eventually become leaders.
Sure. Well, I think leadership and mindfulness should go hand in hand. Unfortunately, I see a lot of leaders they're just caught up in all the things that they have to do, that sometimes it is difficult for a group of leaders to slow down enough to investigate what mindfulness is. Because in their mind, mindfulness, the term mindfulness is so all-encompassing, and it's difficult for them to understand that mindfulness really is about thinking critically without judgment. And the judgment piece, I believe, might be the most difficult part for a leader, because a leader has the tendency, I have the tendency, we all have the tendency whenever we're in a leader position to categorize things as profitable or not profitable, good or bad, necessary, unnecessary. And it's easy to look at mindfulness training and the concept of mindfulness and say, oh, that's very good, and we do need that, and that would really help with our stress, and that would help us do this and help us do that. But I think, there's a time and place for that, and I don't think it's right now. Maybe we can explore that, when we get finished with this project or when we get finished with this. And then what happens is there's never time. There's never time to explore mindfulness. And so I think, leaders would do themselves a favor by exploring mindfulness, and it would help them not only, personally, but also professionally, because then they would be able to take the time and build the muscle in their minds, in their brains, build the muscle on analyzing things a little bit better.
Yeah, and we at Mindful Momentum have really been trying to make headway in this space and really help leaders understand exactly what you just said, is that as a leader, you have a lot of pressure, you have a lot of responsibility, and so from a personal perspective, it can be extremely helpful for you to manage that overwhelm, make sure you're able to have those skills to find balance in your own life and, with families and with all the, dynamic things happening in each of our worlds, to be able to manage that. But then to also begin leading others. And as we know from research, top down, to develop those cultures within organizations, it really does start top down.
It does.
It's those leaders that are living it, not even, talking about it all the time, but they're modeling it. They are speaking volumes just through how they, live it and show it in those small ways that people start picking up on. And so it is really important. So tell us a little bit more about your kind of your program that you've developed, because it kind of aligns with everything we're talking about.
And I'll say one more thing about leadership and mindfulness. One of the great things about mindfulness, what it does for leaders, is it allows them to build their empathy muscle. And leaders, just haven't always needed to be empathetic, but I think in a post-2020 society, research in human resources tells us that we need leaders who are more empathetic towards our employees. It doesn't mean bend over backwards and let the employees do whatever they want or, get whatever they need. But it does mean that a leader understands the perspective and doesn't lose sight of an employee's perspective and why they're working and why they're doing what they're doing. So,
well, even our principles of curiosity, being open to looking at things differently. As I talk with organizations, it's like things have gotten very complex.
Yes.
30 years ago, we thought they were complex probably, but, fast forward and there is so many things to consider in decisions. And if we're not in that place, that mindset of being open, of staying curious, of connection with employees and our teams and the people we're leading, because people hunger for that. And we know retention, of course, is a theme everywhere I go that continues to be a challenge.
It is. The thing that I teach, not in my workplace, but I teach on the side and on Saturday mornings at Shelby Farms in Memphis, is I teach a model. It's called the pivot. And inside the pivot, I incorporate mindful practices so that they can kind of move in the space from the P to the I to the V to the O to the T.
Sounds like a cheer.
It does.
Give me a
P. I love that. Or a rap song.
There we go.
Other.
Yes. We'll have to work on this later.
We will. That could be your theme song.
It could.
I love that. So I just incorporate our fundamentals into my pivot reset. And pivot is just a habit coaching model that I use where I teach people 5 things to do every single day. So many people have a routine, and then some people have a routine for a week and then they give it up, and then their life goes back to disorder and chaos and all of the things, and then they get back to a routine. So I want to teach something that allows people to adopt these 5 very easy things into their lives. They can do it every single day. They can do it all at once, or they can spread it out throughout the day. But it does create some very strong benefits to them, to their lives personally and professionally. And I hate that word, but I discovered the pivot kind of through trial and error. And the error and the trial happened to me and my family back in 2018 when my son was in a lawnmower accident. And he had all of these dreams. And one of his dreams was he wanted to play basketball in college. Not sure if he was going to be on the team, but there's intramural sports and there's all sorts of other things.
He was passionate about basketball.
He was passionate about, like his mom.
Yes.
And so, he wanted to go to college. He wanted to, potentially go into the reserves. So he had all these dreams. And it was a sophomore year. And he has this accident with the lawnmower. Just use your imagination. That's exactly what happened. And in, a few seconds, his life changed. Yeah. And the road to recovery was very uncertain. I had just gotten my job with the Grizzlies, and so I didn't have a lot of time built up that I could take off, but I had to take care of my son. And so in the next 30, 45 days, we just kind of developed this morning routine where, we got up, we prayed together, we looked up a whole bunch of research, just trying to figure out how we were going to help him get back to normal. We fasted, we learned all the exercises that he could actually do to help maintain his strength. I don't think I was in Mindful Momentum at the time. Because I didn't join Mindful Momentum until 2021, I believe. So I didn't even have those practices. So we were just searching for all the answers, all the ways that we could get back to normal, the ways that we could, figure out how to have peace with this just really big change in life. And so we developed this habit routine over the next 45, 50 days. And
it sounds like that. Did that happen kind of organically?
Yes. It just kind of, this is what we did every morning to get started. And then I would go to work and I'd come back, and sometimes we would do our routine at night as we, went to bed, just because it was so gratifying.
Yeah. Sounds
And
purposeful.
It was.
Yeah.
It really, really was. And I guess about the accident happened in September, and by December, Anthony, said, "Mom, I want to go play basketball again." And I said, "Honey, you have half of a foot. You don't have toes. You don't have a big toe. What's going on? How can you play basketball?" And he's like, "I can. I think I can do it. The doctor says try." And so I'm like, okay. So it was the week of Christmas the same year, he joined a church league. And he was running faster than he had ever run before.
Oh my gosh.
It was the weirdest thing. I was just amazed.
Yeah.
And so I credited all the stuff that we had been doing with his phenomenal, just pivot.
Yeah, speak about that,
okay,
because
so
I love that analogy.
So a pivot is a change in direction. Basketball players on the court, they get the ball. They got 2 feet usually on 2 feet
Hopefully.
on the court. The court is their foundation. You have to have a firm foundation if you're going to change directions. And so what a basketball player does is they lift up on their pivot foot, on their pivot toe, and they change directions. And wherever their pivot toe is, kind of pointing towards, that's usually where the ball is going to go. And so once you figure out where you want the ball to go, then you can make your next move, whether it's, jumping or moving forward or passing the ball. And it's kind of like life. We all have our pivot moments. We all have our moments where life gives us something really heavy or burdensome. And if we don't have a firm foundation to rely on, it's going to be very difficult for us to change directions and do it gracefully. And so the first thing you have to figure out is, what is your foundation? Once you figure out what your foundation is, you're going to be able to carry the load. And then as you carry the load and you're looking at all the different places that you can go, mindfulness teaches us to be able to decipher through all of the chaotic things that are going through in our minds. And when you have a mindfulness practice, you can do that instantaneously. Kobe Bryant did that all the time on the court. He just would get into himself and get into his mind, and he would practice mindful basketball. And that's how he won all those championships and how he was so great. And so fast forward a few more months, I was still doing the routine. Anthony was fine. He was back at school. He was leading a new normal life. There was no reason for me to keep that routine up. And the Lord just said, okay, what is your routine, Shelley? Write it down. So I wrote it down. These are the 5 things that I do every single day. So every single day, I pray.
So that's the P.
That's the P.
Okay.
Every single day, I try to learn something new. I investigate things.
That's the I.
That's the I. Every single day, I do some visualization work, whether it's looking at different pictures or different things, going to different people's websites and imagining the possibilities of how I could grow my career or how Anthony could grow his career. There's a lot of different ways you can visualize, but every day I wanted to use my imagination and visualize what could happen next. And so that's the V. I was also very aware during this time of healing that if I was going to ask God to do something, He's going to do it for me. But am I willing to give something up? So if I'm willing to give something up because I want Him to know that nothing is more important than what He wants, what would I give up? What's the one thing that I would sacrifice? Some people fast. We did that. I fasted, in many different ways. One month it would be I fasted from shopping on Amazon.
Oh, I did that during Lent
Yes.
last Lent. Whew.
It teaches you some stuff.
It definitely does.
Okay. But the thing about sacrifice is God is telling us that we have to build our spiritual discipline, our muscle for discipline. He wants us to be disciplined. And so the O in pivot is what's the one thing that you're putting above God that you need to sacrifice? What's the one thing? And for me, it was vanity. I'm a very vain person. I have no reason to be, but I am. And so I did a fast of heat products for 45 days.
On your hair.
On my hair.
When you said that last night, I was like, heat products?
Heat products.
Then you're like, on your hair. I'm like, oh, okay, I got it. Yes.
So
no straightening, no curling.
No straightening, no curling.
El natural.
No blowing it dry or anything like that. It was hard.
That would be very scary for me.
I mean, I'm a Texas
my
girl.
My hair is crazy.
I'm a Texas girl.
Yeah.
I need all the things to juice it up. But in that 45 days of fasting from heat, simple heat products, what he taught me is my looks aren't as important as what I think they are. Yeah. People still like me when I don't have good hair. People are still receptive. And I don't have to have all the things, and I don't have to be perfect. And when I am imperfect, people still like me because it's authentic. And so God was teaching me to be authentic. God was teaching me to not be perfect. That's not my job. My job is not to be perfect. That's his job. And so that's the O. And then the T is you got to train every single day. It's just like being an athlete on the court. You have to go to practice. You have to train. And so Anthony and I did these small exercises. We'd go for a walk, or we'd do dumbbells with, our hands, and he would do, leg raises or leg press with one leg, while he was in recovery and everything. But you have to train your body, to train your brain, because God has a plan for you, and he needs you to be ready physically and mentally. And the only way to do that is every day to do something that trains your mind and your body. And so if you do those 5 things, pray, investigate, visualize, offer up one thing, and then train. That's your daily pivot. And so with my clients and my friends, I tell them, you have 5 minutes, that's your prayer time. You have 5 more minutes, that's your investigation time.
Micro moments.
Yes. And so I start every client out with 25 minutes. And they're like, 30 minutes? Oh my gosh, I don't have 30 minutes to give myself. And then we have a bigger problem. If you don't have 30 minutes to give yourself every single day for a daily pivot.
But it doesn't have to be sustained.
It doesn't.
Hopefully that alleviates some of their stress.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I first started introducing the pivot to people, I didn't really realize that you could cut it up during the daytime. And through trial and error, of course, we just kind of did it.
I feel like almost makes it more powerful.
Yeah.
Because then it's a little more top of mind throughout the whole day, instead of like doing it all at once and going, check.
Yes.
It stops because that can become like, like, okay, I did it.
Yes.
Now I'm just going to go on with my craziness all day. And so by spreading it out.
It's top of mind. You're managing your pivot moments throughout the entire day, and you're managing change, and you're doing it purposely with productive habits. And then when life throws you a curveball and you get something that's totally unexpected, you go back to your prayer. You go back to, investigating something new that has to do with whatever problem is before you. So if you just keep that daily habit of having a pivot every single day, you can manage things. Yeah. You can not only manage things, you can get in front of things. You can you can be grateful and practice abundance, because abundance is going to come to you. And so that's the daily pivot. That's the pivot principle. And it just so happens that the foot that Anthony impacted was his pivot foot on the court. And so it's just,
I love that.
it's so interesting how all of these things came together.
Yeah. And so I'm sure he's so proud of you for, does he know how this and what how you've it's come full circle to really represent your coaching with other people.
Yeah. I don't know if he really realizes.
Maybe not yet.
I've told him,
Yes.
I've told him about the pivot principle, and I told him, it's based on our experience. And, I know he's proud, but I think until the book comes out this fall, he really won't understand.
Ooh, a book. Okay.
News alert.
Tell us more. I didn't know about this.
So I am just writing everything down, and there's a journal that goes with the pivot book. So the first book is going to be really in the psychology section, the self-help section, but it will have a journal that goes along with it, and it will be faith-based. So if it's a person who's maybe not faith-based, then just the pivot principle itself is going to be a great resource for them. But then the person who, does have their own faith beliefs, I think the journal is going to be a really good accompaniment to the book. And so that will be out sometime this fall. I'm still working with my publisher on exactly when. I've got to get this doctorate finished.
Yes.
That's really the first priority.
Yes.
And then we'll finish up the pivot principle.
Oh, well, we can't wait to hear about it. Make sure you let us know.
I
so
will.
We can help promote that.
I will.
And get that. I think you love to write.
I do. Writing is really the number one. The number one thing.
I admire that.
As much as I love to talk, if I get overheated or
like last night,
if I get overheated or if I'm hungry or maybe I'm just really excited and I like to talk a lot, maybe the talks are not going to go as well as they are supposed to go.
Happens to all of us.
So you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to keep writing.
There you go.
And everything will work out.
I love it. Yeah. Well, and I was curious when you were talking about the people you're sharing this with, have they started to express to you the benefits?
Yes.
And what and I know that's just fuels you and inspires you.
It does. And I don't know why I get shocked when people tell me I did the pivot, for 10 days and this is what I've discovered. I'm like, wow. So I'm just kind of keeping a journal of, everything that people tell me. And I'm so grateful for that because I want to just lift that up to the Lord and say, you're doing it. You're doing it.
And what an example. And I always feel like, what a gift to be able to help people, empower people to figure it out themselves, to be inspired to do it. Because we each have to do our own hard work.
We do.
But when people start to do it and then they start to feel what a difference that makes in their life, and how that ripples out to every relationship they have, every conversation they have, and that's what it's about. We talk about that all the time, the ripple.
The ripple effect.
Of that person then impacts all the people around them, that impacts all the people around them. And it's really how we spread the message of mindfulness. And I'm so grateful that you're sharing that in such a beautiful way. And I loved learning more last night as well as today more about the pivot principles. And they are beautifully aligned with our mindfulness because I was thinking
they really, really are.
Prayer is really just meditation,
yes.
right? The investigating is our curiosity. The visualization is very much our inspiration practice.
Yes.
The one thing is our determined aim, kind of, is actually called your one thing.
That's right.
Of just kind of, but it's a little bit more in lifting something up of sacrifice. But I'm a total believer in that. I try and sacrifice and suffer in little ways all day long. Things that people don't even know, but I know and God knows.
Yeah,
and
it's a discipline thing.
It is. And it feels good.
It does feel good.
Yeah. Even as simple as letting people in on the highway.
Sure.
Or, I'll tell you one that is when I go to make coffee, and my husband's not maybe downstairs or he's upstairs or wherever, and I'll make his cup of coffee first. It's something so simple, and he doesn't even know that. But I'm always like, how can I do something in the service of somebody else before myself?
Well, it's funny, whenever I was trying to define each pivot step. I was like, the O is getting me because it could be so many things.
Yes.
And for a good season, it was other. So how can you put someone else, the other person, ahead of you before yourself? Because really, I'm a follower of Jesus, and Jesus was all about, what he could do for someone else. He always put others before himself, and that's one of the many great things about him and about his ministry. And that's one of the things that I want to do, is if I can focus on other people instead of always focusing on myself. Remember the vanity thing. I'm a much better person. So the O for our season was other. And then I started practicing, the fasting and all of the other things. And so it became the one thing. But, I think you can go back and forth.
It's all intertwined.
That's right.
Yes.
It'll be book number 2. Book number 2 would be other.
I love it. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything that, as we kind of wrap up today, is there anything that you would like to share with someone listening?
Okay.
I know that's a really big, tall order maybe, but just to instill maybe some inspiration in maybe where they are, whether it's in their job or their aspirations to, move into more of those leadership roles, or maybe just somebody struggling a little bit. I don't know.
I'm going to go back to what I started to say last night. And that is, I think everybody has a championship season ahead of them. And your championship season is going to look different than my championship season. The Grizzlies' championship season is going to look different than the Dallas Mavericks or whoever wins this year, I'm just saying. But we all have a championship season ahead of us. What we do now to prepare for that season is really, really important, because we have to go to practice every single day. We have to hit the gym, whether it's the mindfulness gym in our micro moments, and we have to take time to meditate and, do the stretching, do the breathing exercises, do the yoga, or it's go and take a class or get a certification, or it's find a mentor and glean from that mentor and take everything in from that person. There's all sorts of ways that we need to be preparing for what God has in store for our championship season. And so we have to be proactive. And
last night you talked about that, and I love that. And we talked about that on our drive home last night, about how we can be intentional, but intention without action.
That's right.
Is just an idea.
It's
just
just
a thought.
an idea. It's a dream.
It's a dream. But to transition that, because I do talk about with people about being intentional about things, but then it's recognizing that one step further. It has to be related to an action that we're taking in order to be meaningful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it.
I know. Well,
A+.
I love that. I mean, because it's, I guess in my world, I think of that, but I haven't really ever teased that apart to really look at it from that angle. And I just really appreciated that. So, yeah.
You're welcome.
I know. So it's like, okay, it's good for all of us to spend time reflecting, and so appreciate your time last night and for you driving in and for
my pleasure.
Your wisdom and your insight. Could you tell our listeners and our audience how they might be able to reach you?
Sure. I am definitely on LinkedIn. As a HR professional, you have to be on LinkedIn. So just look for Shelley Kemp on LinkedIn. Shelley is Shelley, Kemp, Kemp. You can also find me on Facebook. I'm that generation, Facebook. I do not mind. I'm going to give you my email address. Okay. It's pivotcoach@icloud.com.
Okay, great. So if you want to reach out, you certainly can. We're going to wrap up today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope that you are inspired, because that's all of our journey. We're here to inspire and empower your journey and our journey. So let's all continue to grow so that we can flourish. Of course, feel free to like, comment, subscribe. Visit our website at mindful-momentum.com.
Yes.
And thanks for being here, and we'll see you next time.